Hello and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Jassim Azzawi. A secret report by the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad charges al-Maliki's government is riddled with corruption and criminals, and that corrupt Iraqi officials have siphoned off millions of dollars with total immunity, fueling a second insurgency. Judge Radi Hamza Radi, until recently the man in charge of fighting corruption, has investigated and documented hundreds of cases against corrupt officials, reaching all the way to the office of Iraqi Prime Minister al-Maliki, only to be told to close his investigations. In a twist of irony, al-Maliki's office is charging the judge with corruption. Al-Maliki's office ordered the Commission on Public Integrity not to forward any case to the courts involving the President of Iraq, the Prime Minister, or any current and past ministers without first obtaining al-Maliki's consent. So why is al-Maliki protecting corrupt officials, and is he directly responsible for creating an environment in which the mob is running the police department, as stated in the leaked US memo? Ayman Muhyiddin reports.
It's not only violence and occupation that has wreaked havoc on life in Iraq. Reports of widespread corruption and the Iraqi government's inability to deal with it have weakened confidence in Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki's government. In a leaked draft report on corruption in Iraq, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad found that al-Maliki's government is not capable of even rudimentary enforcement of anti-corruption laws. It also concluded that corruption was the norm in many ministries. There is widespread belief that corruption erodes the ability of ministries such as health to perform basic services. Others, such as the Interior, were found to be untouchable, and many officials in the Ministry of Oil were dismissed in politically motivated firings. Iraq's courts were unable to pursue cases of corruption effectively because of intimidation, while many militias are believed to have significant influence in security services. Hundreds of millions of dollars procured to the Iraqi Defense Ministry during the Coalition Provisional Authority era remain unaccounted for. The Iraqi agency tasked with investigating corruption has been unsuccessful in curbing the problem. Its commissioner, Radi Hamza al-Radi, says his committee has faced insurmountable pressure from the government. At least 31 of his employees have been assassinated. Now Radi is seeking asylum in the United States. And it's not only the Iraqi government that has been plagued with corruption. U.S.-led reconstruction projects across the country have been riddled with allegations of mismanagement and theft. There are allegations that the new $500 million U.S. embassy being constructed in Baghdad was being built with the help of illegally hired cheap labor and was yet still coming in over budget. According to Iraq's Committee of Public Integrity, corruption has cost Iraq some $18 billion in the past 3 years, and that less than 5% of reconstruction projects are progressing. Even the U.S. government watchdog agency says the lack of transparency in U.S. management of funds has led to serious problems in the delivery of service to Iraqis. The daily carnage in Iraq may dominate the headlines, but the widespread corruption is proving to be just as destabilizing. Ayman Muhyiddin for Inside Iraq.
To appreciate the level of corruption in Iraq, I am now joined from Washington by Judge Radi Hamza Radi, former chairman of the Commission on Public Integrity. Welcome to Inside Iraq. You and your commission investigated hundreds of corrupt Iraqi officials. Can you tell us the level of corruption in Iraq? Does it extend to most of the ministries, and does it reach all the way to the Prime Minister's office?
Corruption in Iraq has reached a large, intense degree. It is endemic in most of the ministries. Corruption has plagued many of the ministries, namely those which have been recently dissolved after the restructure. There exist many cases involving officers in the cabinet of ministers. Other cases involve other officials in independent institutions.
The leaked report by the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, as well as your commission's report, indicates there are some key ministries are more corrupt than others, primarily the defense, the interior, the oil, as well as the health ministry. Are these causing tremendous chaos in Iraq?
طبعا بالنسبة للوزارات اللي ذكرتها حضرتك
As to the ministries mentioned by you, it is clear that corruption is endemic in them, especially they are based on sectarianism. The effect of corruption has become clear simply for the reason that the ministries of defense and interior are in total control of security. They are plagued with corruption, and for that reason Iraq is not stable. The same applies to the Ministry of Health, which is also plagued with corruption. Hospitals lack medical supplies and drugs. They are even sold out for personal interest. Many of the Iraqis have moved, and great amount of funds have been siphoned, which should have been utilized for public benefit. Also, the Ministry of Transportation, for which millions of dollars were consumed, and unfortunately, we still lack the Air Force or even Naval Force. Other cases involve the Ministry of Communication and Transport. All the ministries I mentioned are plagued and tainted with corruption.
You investigated several ministers, including the current oil minister and the former oil minister. There are few names like Layla Abdul Latif, like Nasreen Burwari, Thamar al-Ghadban, and others. But these investigations, they have been closed. Was it by a direct order from the Prime Minister's office or from certain ministers?
As you are aware, it is stipulated in paragraph B of Article 136 of the Code of Penal Procedures, allows the executive authority to interfere in the judiciary system, and for that reason the Prime Ministership closed all these cases, either for sectarian basis or on the ground of the harmonious relationship between certain sectarian, between certain sects. For that reason, many of the cases were closed.
The Commission for Public Integrity has been a thorn in the side of the Iraqi government. It was established by the Constitution. It's supposed to be independent, and yet it was hampered by lack of investigators. The resources are limited. Now the Prime Minister's office and the gentleman in charge of advising the Prime Minister, a gentleman by the name of Adil Muhsin Al-Khazali, wants the CPA, the Commission on Public Integrity, to be subservient to the Prime Minister's office, and the Prime Minister decides everything about that. How do you feel about that?
As to Dr. Adil Muhsin, he is a physician, and he belongs to the coalition Shiite bloc. He was inducted by the Prime Minister as his own coordinator and a supervisor for the judiciary. This per se is in conflict with the Constitution, simply for the reason that these institutions are independent under the Constitution. In addition, Adil Muhsin himself is a physician, while the operations of these institutions are purely legal and audit. Therefore, he is not the man for the job. In addition, he himself is tainted with corruption. He is suspected of smuggling drugs and selling the same for his own personal gain, and also importing certain neurological drugs and selling them in addition to other medical supplies. Also, the Ministry of the Medical Committee in the Parliament are aware of him and his induction, which is in conflict with the Constitution.
For a while, you were at risk. You were pretty much living with one of the investigators under protection. And right now you are in the United States, and you have been charged with many charges, chief among them perhaps corruption. There was an audit done against you, and the report against you turned out to be glowing. None of that panned out. Do you think that the CPA, as well as you personally, been attacked simply because you are going after the mafia that is part of the Iraqi government?
The Commission on Public Integrity has succeeded in achieving its objects as an independent body without any consideration to ethnic or sectarian grounds. It treats all the individuals on equal foot and under the Constitution. Therefore, I could say that the Commission has succeeded in handing down sentences against more than 200 convicted. And when the government saw the Commission adamant to combat corrupt, it started to point the finger blames on us and accused us of being corrupt, simply because we seek integrity, we seek independence, and we treat all the Iraqis on equal foot without any ethnic or sectarian consideration. Therefore, I should repeat that the accusation, the false accusations against us is a proof of our integrity.
Judge Hamza Radi Al-Radi, thank you very much for being a guest on Inside Iraq.
شكرا لكم.
We'll continue our discussion after the break. Stay with us.
I call it this second insurgency. This money that's stolen doesn't merely enrich criminals, but frequently goes to fund militias or insurgents. Stuart Bowen, Chief Reconstruction Auditor.